everybody, how you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope that you are super well. Today I'm going to bring you photo and maybe a tad of cinema news from around the web. All the latest which has caught my eye, including news from Nikon, Canon, Sony and more. And thanks Per Gear for sending me your latest, greatest, fastest 1 terabyte CFexpress Type B card. And what are Sony thinking with that CFexpress Type A? 640 gigabytes. It's almost, not quite, the same price as their brand new FX30 camera. Let's talk about all that and more. First in Nikon news, if you missed it last week, and it's possible that you might have not looked at YouTube for a whole week, and that's fine. I would do the same thing too if I was on holidays. Holidays, not real holidays since. Nikon news, actually quite a lot of interesting news. Check out this video here if you want to see more comprehensive coverage. But let's start with, we've got the 17 to 28 2.8 lens, which is announced and I think shipping very, very soon. We've also got the appearance on the roadmap of the 70 to 180 2.8, and this now rounds out the affordable 2.8 trinity of glass, of zoom glass. Now, we don't know when that lens is coming, but it is. So you can go from 17 to 180 at 2.8, and these 2.8s are about half the cost of the S-Class 2.8s. Look, I think it's an exciting move from Nikon. Check it out, there's a lot to love. Also in more Nikon Z lens news, 35mm, kind of looks like it's going to be a 1.2 because it's on the same line, and a 135mm 1.8, we think, because it's on the same line as the 1.8s. Prime lens is coming. To me, two very exciting lenses. Also in further Z mount news, the Tamron 70-300 is now shipping, and you can get it in your part of the world. Tamron, if you're listening, send me a review copy. I'd love to test it out for you. That would be awesome. I will be making contact with you. Let's see what we can do. Tamron, hey, hey. Now, in further Nikon news, which I think kind of happens to be Canon news as well, both Sigma and Tamron are discontinuing huge numbers of their DSLR lenses. I'm not going to go through a list. It's a lot of lenses for both Canon and Nikon DSLR mounts. And really this shows where the camera industry is going. If anybody thought that much more time or energy was going to be going into DSLR lenses or DSLR cameras, we can see here that all manufacturers, except Pentax, are exiting this space. And why not? It makes sense. Mirrorless is where the future is. I'm not saying your DSLRs and my DSLRs aren't fantastic. I still have my two D850s and I plan on holding on to them along with a ton of F-glass, which, as you would know, I'm starting to use with my Fuji via the Fringer adapter. So it's not that this stuff isn't still meaningful and relevant and absolutely spectacular at capturing our visions. The point is, that's not where R&D is going, and here is just another sign. Basically, these lenses will not be manufactured, they will not be kept in stock by the manufacturers, and once stock disappears from retailers around the world, that is the end of those lenses, unless of course you can find them in the second-hand market. And in Sony news, yes indeed, we have the intriguing and I think reasonably cool FX30, which is the smaller sibling of the FX3. These two cameras sport what appears to be absolutely identical bodies, and the only thing that's different about them hardware-wise appears to be the sensor. Yes, the FX30 is a new member of the Sony cinema line, and it comes with the majority of the features that you get in the FX3, but at a fraction of the price. Now, from the reviews that I've so far seen online, and I've probably watched about 5 or 6, most people are raving about this camera. And look, from a price point perspective, it's pretty awesome. It's clearly aimed at video. You wouldn't really use it for stills. Of course, you can use it for stills, but it doesn't even have an EVF. So it's definitely more video oriented. What's interesting to me is when I see this camera, it actually to me is quite similar to what is going on with the Z30, which is a much more affordable camera. It's something like, I'll put it on screen here, but it's like 2 or 3 times cheaper. Now, don't get me wrong, these are not the same cameras. Spec-wise, they are not the same, but they are full frame mount camera bodies, both with APS-C sensors, both aimed at the video market. But the Z30 is absolute entry level, and for vloggers and so on, fantastic. Content creators, any type of creator, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, both of these cameras can do it admirably. So if you're a content creator, do you spend the more to go to an FX30, or do you do something like the Z30? Why do they have the same number? Isn't it intriguing? So that does say to me in some weird roundabout way, although we know the development of these cameras are years in the making, they are kind of talking to each other, they are touching each other in the market. But the FX30 is a much more highly specified camera. It has a lot more of the cinema functions in it. It has higher frame rates, so on and so forth. Even to the point, it has an inbuilt fan, which is interesting to me because they talk about weather sealing, but it has an inbuilt fan. Now, what's great is the intake is at the bottom and the outtake is on the side. So I suppose if it's raining from above, not so bad, but your Z30 is sealed. It does not have a fan. Anyway, new from Sony, the FX30. It would be a great B camera if you already have an FX3. It's certainly, when I look at videos like Kai's video, image quality is almost, but not quite, almost exactly the same. If you're an E-mount user, get yourself an FX30 if you need some extra cameras. It's certainly very affordable. And further to the announcement of the FX30, one of the Achilles heels from my perspective of the Sony lineup is they are now using CFexpress, but they are using Type A. What's that all about? Now, Sony love proprietary. Yes, they do. They've done it before. They've done it with many things. Can anyone remember, what was it? Magic Stick? Something like that. It was like a SD card made by Sony. It was their own proprietary thing. CFexpress Type A is not proprietary. Other people can use it. I'm not sure anybody is yet, but the problem with it is it is mind-numbingly expensive, which will segue me over nicely to talking about this little beauty here. Alrighty, so let's just talk about what Sony are doing here. And you know, I'm not wanting to flame on Sony, but it's tough to understand. So we have these 640 gigabyte Type A cards, and the speeds, well, you know, the speeds are still wanting, and this makes me think the standard has got a limit, and it does. Currently, we have read speeds of 800 megabytes per second and write speeds of 700 megabytes per second. And this is with a brand new, announced this week, card from Sony, CFexpress Type A card. But let's just drill into the cost of that card. That card is $1,299 US dollars. You can jump on B&H or Adorama. It's $50 cheaper, $1,248 for 640 gigabytes. Then we look at a card like this from Pergear. It is 1 terabyte. This card, 1600 megabyte read, 1300 megabyte write, 1 terabyte, and it is $399 US dollars. So 400 versus 1200, we're rounding here. That means it's 3 times cheaper, and it's almost twice the size, and it is almost twice as fast. So I'm just putting it out there. I have to ask myself the question, where is Sony going with this? Ultimately, it says to me that the Sony system, if it continues to work with CFexpress Type A, that's the limit. That's the limit. The standard has a limit, and I think it's 1,000 megabytes per second, whereas CFexpress Type B is 2,000 per second. And that's why these speeds are double. So there we go. These are new cards. There's also a 320 gigabyte version, but they are very expensive. The one advantage of CFexpress Type A is that you can put essentially an SD card in the same slot. You basically just turn them one way or another and they're fitting in the same area there. That's cool. That is cool. But do I want to pay 6 times more for that advantage, or do I just want to get on with life, have the faster, larger cards that are 6 times cheaper per volume? It's an easy one for me, and I've been using this form factor since 2012, since XQD, with the Nikon D4 and then the D850, and of course all full-frame Z cameras except for the Z5 use CFexpress Type B or XQD. So we use these things a lot. Sony, interesting to see where you take this. Sony, interesting to see how big and fast these cards get and how cheap they get. Fortunately, there are third-party manufacturers starting to make them as well, and they're a bit cheaper. And yes, let's talk about the Pergear 1 terabyte, and they are calling it the Ultra because it's their fastest cards yet. They say that you can use these in, there it is over there, the Nikon Z9, shooting your raw 8.3K 12-bit files, and boom, it'll just go for it. And we will look into those specifications around this card in a further video. But thank you very much, Pergear. I'm excited to test this little beauty out. In further Tamron news, Tamron has officially released the Tamron 20-40 2.8. Now, I actually think this is a really interesting lens for all sorts of users, and I hope it comes to all mounts, including the Z. Possible now that Tamron are starting to make Z mount lenses. It's official, woo! Yeah, I think this is an exciting lens, and it'd be great for content creators and vloggers. 20 to 40, I mean, you might go it's a weird range, but people who are running and gunning, and it actually works super nicely on APS-C as well. You get a 30 to 60 field of view equivalent. That's probably a bit tight for content creators, but I think you can still get away with it. Interesting lens, it's out there now for E-mount. Let's hope it comes to some other mounts, to a store near you. Next, Logitech. Oh, now they've released a really expensive microphone. Logitech, you know, mice and keyboards, that's what I mostly know them for, but it looks like they've released a cool mic aimed again at content creators and podcasters and all those sorts of people, you know, people like me and plenty of us out there. And I love the industrial design of this new mic. So if you haven't bought yourself yet one of the expensive, beautiful microphones out there for recording voiceovers or doing podcasts and so on, this could be the microphone for you. And it's called the Blue Sona. Check it out. It comes in 2 colors and it has changeable microphone socks so you can just make your own look. How cool is that? It might sound absolutely amazing, and you too can have your radio voice. Okay. Alrighty, well please do let me know in the comments below, are you interested in any of all of these things? Nikon, Canon, Sony, maybe you want to go the FX30, who knows? It's all very exciting stuff, and look, we've still got October, November and December. I think literally anything could happen in those coming months. It's kind of been a quiet year. I think we would all say in general this year has been a quiet year. Last year was a very noisy year. We had the A1 and the Z9 at either ends of the year, plus a whole lot of other stuff. Wow, so much fun. Well, thanks so much for being here. And if this is your first time here, golly gosh, would I love to see you again? Yes, I would. So please do subscribe. Don't forget to share and like this video. It means so much to help the channel get out there. Give me a smile as well, and don't forget channel membership just down here. Become a member because we are going to get into doing some more fun things together. All right. Bye for now. I gotta go do some stuff. See ya.